The Radical Power of Softness, Redefining Resilience for Black Women Entrepreneurs. Good evening, everyone. I'm truly honored to be here with you today. Recently, I had the extraordinary privilege of interviewing Katrina Adams, whose insights have profoundly shaped my understanding of what true resilience looks like, especially for Black women navigating the complex landscapes of entrepreneurship in professional life. Katrina isn't just a thought leader, she's a revolutionary force who has dedicated her life to dismantling the toxic hustle culture that has claimed too many brilliant minds and broken too many powerful spirits. Her work in transforming how we think about strength, success, and self compassion has created ripples of healing that continue to touch countless lives across generations. We've all heard the mantras, haven't we? Rise and grind. I hustle harder. No days off. These phrases echo through entrepreneurial spaces, social media feeds, and corporate boardrooms. They've become the unofficial gospel of success in America. And for Black women, especially, this pressure to constantly perform, to never show weakness, to push through pain, it's not just cultural. It's often seen as necessary for survival. But what if I told you that this definition of resilience, this relentless pushing forward regardless of cost, might actually be killing us? What if true power lies not in our capacity to endure hardship indefinitely, but in our courage to embrace softness when we need it most? This is the unexpected perspective that emerged so powerfully in my conversation with Katrina Adams. While many associate entrepreneurship and professional success with relentless hustle and constant grinding, true resilience, especially for Black women facing health, economic, and social challenges, often looks like learning to honor your limits, embrace self compassion, and redefine productivity on your own terms. The narrative isn't just about pushing through adversity, it's also about knowing when to pause, when to grieve changes in yourself, and how to build a new version of wholeness from where you are now. For many Black professionals navigating chronic illness or setbacks such as job loss, embracing softness can be a radical act of self preservation and surprisingly, a catalyst for authentic growth. Let me share something that might challenge how you think about strength. In June 2025, a comprehensive survey of women entrepreneurs revealed something fascinating. Nearly half, 47% to be exact, cited lack of differentiation as a major barrier affecting their confidence in success prospects. But here's what's interesting: those who achieved sustainable growth weren't the ones who simply worked harder than everyone else. They were the ones who focused on strategic growth aligned with their community values rather than chasing rapid scale alone. These successful entrepreneurs were thoughtfully diversifying revenue streams, yes, but more importantly, they were building businesses that honored their whole selves, their values, their boundaries, their need for sustainability. They achieved long term growth through intentional risk assessment and relationship building over short term gains. This wasn't weakness, this was wisdom. And the results speak for themselves. Rising numbers of these women are achieving $5 million plus in annual revenues despite challenging economic climates. They're fostering resilient ecosystems where innovation aligns closely with lived experience and community well being, not just the bottom line. This brings me to the first key insight from my conversation with Katrina Adams. Resilience is not just endurance, it's adaptation. Your ability to succeed as an entrepreneur or professional doesn't depend on ignoring pain or difficulty, but on adapting creatively and compassionately when life changes unexpectedly. Consider the remarkable journey of Black women entrepreneurs in tech, historically underrepresented due to systemic barriers, including funding gaps and bias. These women have transformed the landscape not by simply pushing harder against these barriers, but by creating entirely new pathways around them. Through targeted mentorship programs, increased access to digital tools, and community based accelerators focused specifically on women founders, they've narrowed the gender gap in tech startups significantly. By 2023, there was only a 1% difference between men and women launching ICT companies. And here's what's particularly noteworthy: women led teams showed higher ROI compared to their male led counterparts. Over 2 decades, from 2001 to 2023, women's startup activity rates rose sharply from 6.1% average in the early 2000s up to 10.4% between 2021 and 2023. The growth in female founded businesses was nearly double that of men from 2019 to 2023. This isn't just inspiring new generations of diverse leaders, it's driving greater creativity and innovation across sectors. And it happened not because these women simply worked harder than everyone else, but because they worked differently, adapting to challenges with creativity, community support, and a willingness to redefine what success looks like. Which brings me to the second key insight from my conversation with Katrina. Community matters more than ever. Building genuine relationships, not just networks, is essential for support during tough times. Engaging with others who understand your journey can be both healing and empowering. Let's look at another powerful example that illustrates this point. Between January 2023 and June 2025, Black women's unemployment climbed from approximately 5% up past 6%, even as white and Asian women's rates stayed flat near 3%, with Latina rates hovering around 5%. Systemic racism meant cracks appeared first among Black workers before spreading elsewhere in the economy. This wasn't a personal failing of individual Black women. It was a systemic pattern, what advocacy organizations called the canary in the coal mine effect. These organizations raised awareness, and targeted workforce development initiatives began addressing these disparities at policy levels. The outcome? Heightened visibility led some employers and policymakers toward more inclusive hiring practices, though persistent gaps remain. This increased public discourse around intersectional labor issues and set groundwork for future reforms aimed at closing racial and gender employment gaps. What's remarkable here is how community advocacy transformed individual struggles into collective action. This underscores why redefining success and self worth outside traditional metrics is so important. When Black women came together to name these patterns and advocate for change, they weren't just supporting each other through difficult times, they were changing the conversation about what economic justice looks like. And this brings me to perhaps the most radical insight from my conversation with Katrina Adams. Softness is strength. Embracing practices that nurture mental health, like writing, grounding activities, art, isn't weakness. It's foundational for sustainable leadership and innovation in business. The soft girl era isn't about being weak, Katrina told me, her voice resonating with conviction that still echoes in my mind. It's about being whole. It's about recognizing that your capacity to lead, to create, to innovate, it all flows from your capacity to care for yourself first. This wisdom echoes the words of Audre Lorde, who famously said, Caring for myself is not self indulgence, it is self preservation. And that is an act of political warfare. For Black women, especially, who have historically carried the weight of families, communities, and workplaces on their shoulders, claiming the right to rest, to boundaries, to softness. This isn't just personal care, it's revolutionary. Consider this affirmation that Katrina shared: I honor my limits as much as I honor my ambitions. My softness is not my weakness, it is my power source. This perspective transforms how we think about productivity and success. The women entrepreneurs in our third example demonstrated this beautifully. By focusing on strategic growth aligned with their values rather than chasing rapid scale alone, they built businesses that were not just profitable but sustainable. They understood that long term success comes not from constant hustle, but from intentional choices that honor both their ambitions and their well being. A June 2025 survey found most entrepreneurs planned fundraising, but were more cautious after recent market shifts, a sign they're balancing ambition with realism. This isn't fear or lack of drive, it's wisdom. It's recognizing that sustainable success requires sustainable practices, including practices that honor your need for rest, for community, for wholeness. Now, I want to be clear about something. This isn't about abandoning ambition or lowering our standards. It's about expanding our definition of what strength looks like. It's about recognizing that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is not push through pain, but honor it. Not ignore your limits, but respect them. Not sacrifice your well being for success, but redefine success to include your well being. For Black women navigating entrepreneurship, professional life, and the myriad challenges that come with existing at these intersections, this perspective isn't just helpful, it's healing. It offers a way forward that doesn't require leaving parts of yourself behind. As Katrina Adams so eloquently put it, we've been taught that our value lies in what we can produce, what we can endure, what we can overcome. But what if our true power lies in our capacity to be fully human, to feel deeply, to rest completely, to honor our needs unapologetically? This question invites us to reimagine not just how we work, but how we live. It challenges us to consider what might be possible if we expanded our definition of strength to include softness, if we saw vulnerability not as weakness, but as courage, if we recognize that sometimes the most productive thing we can do is rest. So I stand before you today with a challenge to disrupt the very foundation of how we define power, success, and resilience. I challenge you to embrace what the world has taught you to reject: your need for rest, your right to boundaries, your capacity for vulnerability. I challenge you to practice radical softness in at least one area of your life this week. Set that boundary you've been afraid to enforce. Take that rest you've been denying yourself. Speak that truth you've been silencing. And notice what happens, not just to your productivity, but to your humanity. Because here's what I know to be true: a world where Black women can thrive in their fullness, ambitious and soft, powerful and vulnerable, visionary and present, is a world that benefits everyone. It's a world where innovation flows from well being, where leadership is sustainable, where success is measured not just in profit, but in wholeness. The revolution will not be hustled. It will be nurtured into being by those brave enough to challenge the status quo by honoring their humanity first. And that revolution begins with you, with your next breath, your next boundary, your next moment of chosen softness in a world that demands hardness. Will you join me in this radical act of reclaiming our whole selves, the future of leadership and of our collective well being depends on it. Thank you